Friends, tonight we're painting a German tank interior. This one is only partial, and only a fraction of it will be visible through the open hatches, so let's do it quickly and easily. For starters, a light coat of VMS Oxide Red Primer. On one hand, a neutral grayish tone might have sounded more logical, but I wanted to approach it like in real life. Germans always applied a coat of red primer first, and then applied the paints. As such, if the red undercoat affects the paints that we'll be applying on top of it, it might just add to the realism. Besides, some sections, such as the floors on these tanks, were left unpainted, so this choice might save us some time in the long run. Some of you have asked me what I'm using to clean my airbrush after I'm done with this magical potion, and it's simple. The original acrylic airbrush cleaner from VMS. I run it through the airbrush 2 or 3 times, and once it's all out, the tool is as good as new. With the red primer finished, let's admire the unified textures for a second and proceed with the actual colors. So far, I always painted my interiors with pure white, but this time I wanted an off-white creamy color, just like on the real thing. A few drops of dark yellow did the trick, and the red underneath might make it look even warmer. The black and white historical images can make it look like the insides of tanks were painted white, but if I remember correctly, they used something like ivory. It's just the contrast that makes it look whiter than it actually is. Even now, with the oxide primer around it, the color looks snow white. It's often hard to tell these apart if you don't have a clean white reference somewhere at hand. By adding a lot more German yellow into the mix, I painted the ball mount for the mortar. This one was definitely painted in the exterior color for one very important reason. A good chunk of it will be visible from the outside. That pretty much concludes our airbrushing adventure. Everything else will be finished with brushes because I would do anything to avoid masking. But before we do that, let's prepare a few oil paints on this cardboard palette. We'll use them for weathering in a moment, but first they need to be drained from the excess linseed oil. The process usually takes at least an hour, ideally longer, so in the meantime we can paint the remaining parts with AK acrylics. Medium rust is my favorite oxide color, and I'm not talking about oxide as rusty oxide, I mean oxide primer. Check out how vivid it is compared to the VMS iron oxide primer. Sure, it might be less authentic, but you'll see how much this area will be affected by weathering effects, and how in the end it'll look just right. Besides, with interiors, you want to have as much contrast as possible, otherwise nothing will be visible through those crew hatches. For the ammunition, I went with 2 green shades which I used separately, but also mixed them together for color variation. The 38cm rockets for the Sturmtiger were most likely painted in olive green or possibly field grey, but again, I wanted them to be nice and vivid. The rocket that's displayed in the Munster Museum is painted in a combination of yellow and some dark color. I'm not sure if it's historically accurate, but I definitely wanted to have it in my model. This is the only time I had to use masking tape, and I hated every second of it. This is also a good time as any to apply the decals, and in this case, it's the rockets that will receive this treatment. After a quick coat of VMS gloss varnish, I applied the stripes, serial numbers, and Achtungs. I often have to use decal softening and setting solutions, but these decals from Ryfield model were top notch. Now I could seal them with a layer of VMS satin varnish. All of these varnishes and primers from VMS are top tier stuff. I just love using them, and you can get them through the affiliate links in the description with a small discount if you use my coupon codes. Now that the oils have been drained, we can proceed with the first weathering step. The light brown tone will be perfect for that for multiple reasons. You see, the first layer of wash is extremely messy. I like to apply it over the entire surface, and thus I call it a global wash. It's quick, easy, and you can do it as the last thing during your painting session because it needs a bit of time to dry. At least overnight, or even better, an entire day, especially if the paint underneath is glossy, such as in this case. The messy application means that you can slightly alter the tone of the model, using the wash as a filter, and it also subtly brings out the various surface textures and irregularities. It also creates subtle traces of dirt, making it a perfect initial weathering layer. The messy application also means that you need to watch it as it dries, because it sometimes likes to create ugly tide marks, and those are not cool. After that, and I mean the next morning, I attacked the surface with another, more controlled layer, a detailed pin wash. This one uses a darker color, and it's applied in and around the deepest recesses and around details. While the first layer enhances the texture and weathered look, this one outlines every important surface feature, especially those that were not deep enough for the global wash to stick in. I mean, the lines get kinda blurry between all these different techniques because the lines on the rockets were really shallow and I couldn't use the capillary action of the diluted oil paint at all. But in other places, it was smooth sailing. So that's another stage completed, and it's already quite the transformation, isn't it? Moving on to the gray and metallic chapter, we'll use the pin wash surface to our advantage and deal with all those tiny parts. I always paint most of these in various shades of gray because that's what their color was in real life. But it's kind of funny because in the past I made an entire video about detail painting and pretty much 80% of the video was me using just two colors. In some cases, such as on the cables, I feel like it's better to be less historically accurate because on the real tank, they were painted white as well. Speaking of white, I used it to add subtle highlights to small parts, making them look more three-dimensional, and in cases of really tiny details, making them stand out entirely. Washes can make them look darker, and this step brings them back to life. I don't use metallics very often apart from the polished wheels on tanks, but they were more than appropriate on the breech and inner tube of the gun. While I was at it, I also mixed rot brown with 2 drops of retarder and 2 drops of water. Chipping is something you don't see much in tank interiors because they're not exposed to the elements, heat of the combat, or the environment. However, I often use this technique as another way of enhancing the contours of the model. If the pin wash outlines the corners and panel lines, chips enhance the edges. This effect was then enhanced with something even more controversial: rust effects created using oil paints. If chipping is not something you see often inside the tank, then rust is something you won't see at all. However, these two go together like bread and butter and contribute greatly to the overall used look of not just interiors, but any model that was made from steel in real life. We can see here how the effect is very subtle if we look at it from a normal distance, and it's gonna become even more subdued when the interior gets closed off. Let's now finish it off with some earth-colored gouache from AK. This is one of the quickest ways of adding dust effects because it's an acrylic paint that can be blended with water, and as soon as you're done, you can layer enamels or oils on top of it. Every AK paint used in this video and everything else from them can be bought with a discount code through the affiliate link in the video description using the sales coupon, which you'll find there as well. Engine grease is an oil paint I don't use too often, and funny enough, it's the only oil paint that remains glossy even when it's been sitting on a cardboard pallet for several days. But it's one of the quickest ways of adding dark, glossy stains in a single step, and this is exactly how the floor looked in the real tank. I might have gotten carried away with the forced contrast between panels, but again, it's gonna look great through the hatches. And now, let's focus on some 3D printing. This right here is my old setup, Elegoo Saturn 4 Ultra 12K, and Mercury Plus Wash and Cure Station. I bought them last year and it's one of the best purchases I've done. So when Elegoo sent me an email and offered me their new 16K version of this monster in exchange for a small product shoutout, I got really excited. I bought some Blink from Colts 3D, got it ready for printing in Lychee Slicer, and left the rest for the printer to do its magic. You just calibrate the exposure to your resin and that's the only setup you need to do. This new version has a built-in heater for the resin, and although I never ran into issues with the temperature because I'm printing inside the house, it's gonna be essential for someone who's printing in a garage or somewhere else. The 16K display and smaller pixel size of just 14 by 19 microns are noticeable. The bigger Mercury Plus V3 they sent me as well is a bit of an overkill for my usual needs, but it's so powerful it creates a literal tornado inside the tank. The UV lights are also several times stronger than in the smaller V2. And even though I used a standard, not the high detail resin, the results are incredible. It's the first time I can't see any pixelation on cylindrical objects. You'll find the printer in the link down in the description. When painting 3D prints, it's essential to give them a quick coat of primer, which not only makes the details more visible, but the painting will be easier too. All of these parts are relatively small, so I quickly painted them with brushes. Again, they're gonna be out of sight, so I kept the painting simple. Just a base coat, some quick earth tones using AK acrylics, a pin wash from oil paints, and that was more than enough. The jerry can is absolutely incredible, but when I was cleaning up my stash, I found a fully painted leftover from my Yak Panther, so in order to save some time, I used that one. You might be wondering why I'm creating another cozy corner full of random stowage and junk on the floor of the fighting compartment, and the reason is simple: historical accuracy. The floor of the vehicle I'm replicating had almost the same amount of clutter strewn about, but I created my own interpretation of the mess because for the life of me, I couldn't figure out from the photo in which corner the pile was located. The randomly placed potato mashers have become a running joke among my Patreon community since I built the A7V with full interior, but I just can't help it. They're very easy accessories and they look awesome, especially when you can print them infinitely. And with that, my mission was complete. So, my friends, it's been a couple of years since we painted an interior, and this time I wanted to keep it quick and efficient. Mainly because the A7V model taught me that no matter how much you mess around with post-shading and other fancy techniques, none of that will be visible in the end. And also because these days, I just can't afford to spend 16 hours a day at the workbench, so my time is more limited and I want to work more efficiently. But hey, who can spend half a day at the workbench every single day, right? So in the end, staying focused on the important parts of the paint job is the key when it comes to interiors. Paying attention to what's gonna be visible and treating the rest as an afterthought. Honestly, I don't believe anyone who's done one of these would judge you for not spending 10 hours on that one obscure corner nobody will ever see. Anyway, that'll do for this week. Next time, we'll glue the two halves of the hull together and apply the camouflage. Thank you so much for watching and for staying with me all these years. It truly means a lot. I wouldn't be able to run my channel full time without my patrons. They keep the compressor pumping and the airbrush spraying, and if you're one of them, thank you from the deepest part of my body. My Patreon is honestly the coolest place. I post regular updates, share work in progress photos, thoughts from the workbench, and we keep in touch through DMs, comments, and emails. Top tier patrons get early access to all my videos, completely ad-free, and they stay there forever, perfect for rewatching like a podcast. There are also bonus extras like 3D printable parts for your own projects, reference photos from real-life locations, and high-res studio shots of my models that show way more detail than video ever could. Your financial support is appreciated, but never expected. And remember, build your models, don't just hoard them. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers!